And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, which, as we'll see in verse 15 of this 17th chapter of the book of Revelation, are symbolic of peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication, which is the blood of a dead man we read of in verse 3 of the last chapter, meaning the son of perdition, as Satan is called in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, where you can read of the falling away, which is apostasia in the Greek, when most Christians who are supposed to be the light of the world, showing people the way to the true Christ, will cease to be the virgin bride and become citizens of the Babylon of the end times that will come into being at 666, when the king of Babylon of the end times appears in Jerusalem claiming to be Christ. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth, as opposed to the heavenly Jerusalem, which is the mother of us all, as you can see in Galatians chapter 4 verse 26, the motherland, that is to say, of all who are in Christ Jesus. But here we see the opposite, and the Zur in the Hebrew, which means the apostate woman, as you can see on page 873 of the Companion Bible. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus, because most Christians will at 666 become partakers of the evil deeds of the Kenites, who are the natural branches of Satan's family tree, and the Nakar in the Hebrew, which means the foreign woman, meaning foreign to Christianity. And when I saw her, I wondered with great wonder, would be a better translation as opposed to admiration. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And that happens after the 1,000 years are finished, as we'll see in Revelation chapter 20, when Satan gets blotted out in the lake of fire, as promised in Ezekiel chapter 28. So the beast in this 17th chapter of the book of Revelation means Satan in general, whether it be before, during, or after the 6th seal, the 6th trumpet, and the 6th vial. He was in the first world age, and is not is a Hebraism that means dead, because Satan is spiritually dead, which is why he's called a dead man in Revelation 16 verse 3. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. He was alive, spiritually speaking, in the first world age, but he is not, because he's sentenced to perish, and yet is, because he still exists up until he's cast into the lake of fire after the 1,000 years are finished. And most Christians will worship Satan instead of Christ, which is what Antichrist means when he appears in Jerusalem and his image gets transmitted throughout the globe, all but those of the Zadok, whose names were written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, which means the destruction of the first world age when Satan first rebelled, as you can see in Appendix 146 of the Companion Bible. And here is the mind which hath wisdom, the 7 heads or 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth, meaning 7 literal mountains, which are the 7 continents of the planet Earth. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come, and when he cometh he must continue a short space, meaning 2.5 months or 70 evenings, which is what the 70 years in captivity to the Babylon of old were a type of. The time frame of this 10th verse of Revelation 17 being just after the deadly wound to the one world political system we read of back in chapter 13, and just before 666 when Satan appears as the Antichrist. So 5 are fallen, meaning the 4 hidden dynasties in the one world political system itself because of the deadly wound, and 1 is, meaning the dragon, who is that old serpent called the devil and Satan, and the other meaning the 7th king, which is Satan in his role of Antichrist, called also the false prophet, is not yet come, and when he cometh, he must continue, I repeat, continue a short space, which is again 2.5 months, beginning at the woe of the 6th trumpet, but Satan and his angels will be cast to earth at the woe of the 5th trumpet, when the one world political system comes into being, having 7 heads, which are symbolic of the 7 continents of the planet Earth. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. Again, after the 1,000 years are finished, when he's cast into the lake of fire. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. And again, the beast in this chapter means Satan in general, not appearing as the Antichrist until the midst of the 5-month-long hour of temptation. And these 10 kings you can also read of in Daniel chapter 7, whereas you can see they're part of Daniel's exclusively supernatural 4th beast. So these are 10 fallen angel kings that will be cast to earth along with Satan at the woe of the 5th trumpet. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. The armies which were in heaven that return with Christ at the 7th trumpet are made up of most of the 7,000 Zadok who lived and died throughout the centuries, including the 24 elders who are the positive counterpart to these 10 fallen angels, as we saw back in chapter 4 of this book of Revelation. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Meaning they'll remove the bread of life from most Christians with the fire, smoke, and brimstone we read of back in chapter 9, which is symbolic of the deception. They'll be made naked spiritually at 666, when they lose credit for their righteous acts that make up the clothing worn in the spiritual bodies, when they worship the abomination of desolation, which is Satan in his role of Antichrist, called also the little horn in Daniel chapter 7, little because 666 will only last 2.5 months, the short space we read of back in verse 10. For God hath put in their hearts, which means in the minds of the 10 fallen angel kings, to fulfill his will, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of God shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth, meaning Babylon, which means confusion, as opposed to the heavenly Jerusalem, which is the mother of us all who are in Christ Jesus.